Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Jolene Brighten and I'm here with my good friend Jenn Fugo, and she's going to be sharing with us today her story with the birth control pill. So I first want to say thank you for taking the time to chat with us all today.
Well, thank you for having me. I believe so passionately in what you're doing because you're empowering women. Like, what you're doing is empowering me, even though I'm a bit beyond the post-birth control period. I wish that I had you as a resource when I was going through this.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I know you have I have to share with you guys. She actually started sharing her story with me, and I was like, hold up, stop. I have to record this. So I haven't heard the whole thing. There's some major trauma that's gone on in your history, like many of our histories, in terms of how women's medicine is treating us or not treating us appropriately. So let's begin this story with how, when, why did you begin hormonal birth control?
I started when I was about 18 years old, and really the only reason was because I come from a pretty conservative Italian family, and I was afraid that I was going to get pregnant. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I was not sexually active, but I figured that, getting ready to go to college, I didn't know. And so that was the reason why. And I was never told. In fact, I don't even remember ever being told that there was ever any risk or anything wrong with doing it at all. And so for years, I took it as if, well, this is just what I need to do. There's no big deal. And in fact, I did have some issues in college with precancerous squamous cells. And at no point did
Which are found on the cervix. So
Yes.
We're talking about a scare of cervical cancer.
Yes. And no one ever said anything to me about what medication I was on or anything. Mm-hmm. And so I went about 10 years taking it, and all of a sudden, a friend of mine's sister had a stroke. And I was like, what do you mean she had a stroke? And he's like, I got to go to the hospital, now.
Yeah.
And we found out that it was because she was on birth control pills.
And how old was she?
She was in her mid-20s, I believe. So
and this is the thing that women are often told, stroke risk, worry about it after 35. Worry about it as you get older. But in fact, I've seen strokes in patients as young as 17.
Yeah, and what was worse was then about a month later, 2 other women that I knew, their either friends or a relative also had a stroke.
Oh my gosh.
So it's 3 people that I knew, and I was like, what's going on? Is this a serious thing that I need to be aware of? And the more I started to read about it, the more concerned I became, because I don't want to have a stroke. And so I read up and went back to my OBGYN and was like, listen, I have some serious concerns with this. And it was really just the stroke issue. I didn't know about all the other issues that you talk about. And he laughed at me, first of all. And my dad's a doctor, so it is important to this conversation. And my dad knew this OBGYN. And so this doctor, he starts laughing at me. And then he goes, well, your dad's going to be really mad at me if you come home with a big belly.
Oh my gosh.
And it's not going to be cute.
Yeah. Which is, one, you have no right to be commenting on my body, okay, and telling me what's cute and not cute, and also that you're not going to be cute pregnant. This whole idea, though, that his biggest concern was your dad is what really rubs me wrong, that he was less concerned about your health or your health concerns. I mean, you're a young woman saying, I've had 3 people in my social circle have a stroke. I have a fear. And instead of him going over statistics, letting you know what you can do to look out for a stroke, what are the signs and symptoms, reduce your risk, should there be talks of changing the birth control that you're on, or should we maybe consider testing you for, there's common genetic variants that things like MTHFR or factor V Leiden, there's inflammatory proteins, these markers that doctors can measure, and he would be able to ease your mind in just running a simple blood test to say, yes, there is a risk, let's get you off of this, or no, actually we're not seeing any changes like that whatsoever. But instead, he basically insulted you and was more concerned about what your dad thought than what you thought. I mean, that is something that I just want to go and wag my finger at him and be like, no, you don't talk to Jenn like that.
Well, and what was worse was that I asked about what are my other options, could I do an IUD or anything else that was available at the time, and he just, again, kind of blew me off. Oh, you're fine, don't worry about it, just stick with what you're doing right now. And so I talked with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, and I said, look, I have these serious concerns, and he shared them. He's like, I don't want you to have a stroke.
Yeah, totally.
And so we made the decision that I would get off of them, and we would have to find some responsible way to have intimacy in our relationship around our timing, and what would make sense for us. But the issue was, so fast forward a little bit, I went through a teacher training, and this is around the same time, and I was for yoga, and they're sitting there talking about your moon cycle, and everyone's like, oh yeah, during that time of the month you get these horrible cramps and everything. And I realized I had never experienced anything about a period, because it had been 10 years and I really was completely out of touch with that entire hormonal side of my body. So when I did shift off of the pill, my period was so messed up. I would go sometimes 2-3 months without a period, then all of a sudden it would come super early. I never knew when I was going to get it, and this went on for years. And no one could ever explain to me what was wrong. It was always, well, maybe you should think about going back on the pill.
Yeah, it's always the solution. Even though this is the very thing that likely contributed to your symptoms and the problems that you're having, the doctors are like, well, it's the best thing we got. Just go back on it. To back up to what you were saying, that your doctor was like, oh, well, dismissing IUD, is that if he was so concerned about you getting pregnant, those have higher efficacy rates than hormonal birth control. There's this common myth in women's medicine that the birth control pill is so effective, it's 99% effective, but in reality with typical use, that's more like 91% effective. So this to me, I'm like, if you're really concerned about her getting pregnant, you might want to check the methods that you're recommending. But so you came off of hormonal birth control. You developed post-birth control syndrome, which manifested as irregular periods, and that went on for years. Were there any other symptoms you experienced?
Yes. So first of all, as you're sitting here sharing these stats, I'm shocked because I didn't know any of that, number one.
Right.
But I had so many gut problems. By the time I went off the pill, I had tons of inflammation in my system to where I had gained almost 20 pounds. I had a bunch of food sensitivities. I had chronic diarrhea so badly I was going to the bathroom probably 15 times a day. Stomach problems. It's normal. I just felt so unwell and I looked unwell. And I had no idea until much more recently, as again, I'm more beyond this, but as I'm learning more from you, I'm realizing now, oh my gosh, I didn't have anyone to go to. I had no resources, and so many of my health problems, this was a major trigger for me. And I had no clue that probably played a role in a lot of the nutritional deficiencies that I had, and probably a bunch of other issues. I was really depressed. I was so miserable. My adrenals were shot, and I was only 27 and 28 years old when all this stuff went down. So, yeah.
That's such a common time for women to come off of hormonal birth control. It's almost like that's a time where we start to kind of wake up to things, and we're like, wait a minute, I'm seeing these things happen in friends, or maybe I'm thinking about having a baby. And that's so often when women get told, well, this is just a part of getting older. And she's 28. Maybe when she's 98, can we save it for then? But don't tell her that now. And so through all of that, so you had, and absolutely, the pill creates these nutrient deficiencies. It causes leaky gut. It disrupts the microbiome. And, we're just starting to understand more and more about the microbiome. So your period was irregular. Anything that you did to help to get it regular again, to sync up that cycle again?
You know what? I waited it out. I wish I hadn't. I really wish that I hadn't. I just didn't know. At the time, there was no resources. So that's why I'm really glad that you're doing what you're doing to inform women who are either at that point or before that point thinking, or who know someone who had a stroke or any serious issue that was maybe connected to taking those medications. And look, I respect people. I'm not saying, oh, just throw your birth control out or flush it down the toilet. I think every person has to be informed. That is my complete opinion on pretty much everything. Sometimes some people need certain medications for a reason. Everybody's journey is different. But I wish that I had that knowledge, because I spent years completely out of sync with my body, having no idea why, and thinking it was normal. And I've been told by OBGYNs repeatedly, it's normal, just go back on birth control pills. If you're not planning on having children, just go back on birth control and it'll right everything. And that's not the case.
Yeah, and it's not like, so the pill is depleting nutrients, it's causing these gut issues, and it's so short-sighted for the doctor to say, we've got period problems, so use the pill, forget the gut, forget anything else, because there's another doctor for that. They can deal with that. That's some other kind of issue. And it's where women get stuck and they struggle for a long time, is that doctors don't recognize, actually, all of these things are connected. And it's a lot of the work I'm doing is to help educate clinicians. It's really happening more in women, but educate clinicians and women that yes, the pill does, in fact, impact multiple systems, if not all systems, throughout the body. And so we can see it manifest in a lot of ways when women are on it, but also as they transition off. So catch us up to speed. Where is your health today?
My health is in a much better place. I mean, I've gone through a lot to fix my gut, number one, and then I ended up with chronic hand eczema about 3 to 4 years ago that it took some sorting out after seeing dermatologist after dermatologist who could not figure it. They're like, put Vaseline on your hands. Just use the steroid cream. You'll be fine. It was not fine. It was horrible. So, I mean, I have spent a lot of time in the last 10 years, because that was really the beginning of my wake-up call. That was when I started realizing that I needed to look deeper, because my health values had shifted. And being blown off or being laughed at or dismissed was no longer acceptable anymore. And so I've done a lot of work. I became a clinical nutritionist because I believe so powerfully that what we do, not just, I mean, food is important, but lifestyle, stress reduction, relationships, there's so many pieces that make our lives full and complete. And when we get so out of touch with our bodies, the symptoms that we have, I really believe it's your body's way of trying to tell you something. And, a lot of women are like, well, we should just run a test and it'll tell us all these things. And sometimes, with conventional labs, they tell you some things. They might not always tell you everything. And
they're only a piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. But the body, and I could be wrong about this, but I always relate the body's symptoms as if our body is old, like ancient technology. And what it's sending you, unfortunately, are like smoke signals.
Yeah,
and
that's a good one.
And because we're expecting it to just come through loud and clear like a computer, you have this, it's not always the case. And so instead of blowing them off and being like, oh, my hair's falling out, or oh, I'm gaining weight, or my skin's breaking out, or my period's like all over the place, we need to look deeper, tune in and say, what is my body actually trying to say to me? And can I reprioritize my body to be in at least the top 3 of what's important, because you only have one body, and after a certain point of it trying repeatedly to tell you what's wrong, it will break.
Absolutely. And that's the sad thing that I see so often, is that, women have symptoms, so maybe they start having irregular periods, and so that can be rooted in nutritional insufficiency. And as you have alluded to, lifestyle is a big part of that. It can be too much stress. It can be over-exercise. It could be thyroid disease. It could be celiac disease. I mean, I could keep going. There's a reason for it. And your body, that's just one way your body's letting you know. It's one clue. It's a vital sign. So as much as your blood pressure is important or your pulse is important, your period is important as well. But all of these symptoms, I'm right there with you. They absolutely are your body's way of letting you know, I need some attention, I need some love. And there's this crazy idea that in health where it's like your body's betraying you and your body's revolting against you, and it's like, but your body needs you and you need your body to survive. So like, why on earth would your body do that? It's just asking for a little TLC. And this is something, you say, I believe so much in, the foundational things that you spoke about diet and about lifestyle, and that's why you became a clinical nutritionist. But it's also because you experienced the power of it and you were able to heal your body. And in a lot of ways, when conventional medicine was failing you and giving you solutions that were only temporary Band-Aids, and with a lot of the things you listed out, I mean, they come with a whole lot more trouble than they do relief. And so where, in terms of your journey, are you taking your work to be able to help women and help other people who are in a similar journey as you've been?
Well, right now, I work a lot with women who have had chronic gut issues. So we're like, we can relate. I understand what it's like to really struggle with your gut. And so I work with them, and I also work with women that have had chronic skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis and rosacea, where they've seen dermatologist after dermatologist like I did, and they're not getting help. And at some point they realize that what they're being told is not working. And in fact, those solutions, you have to put them in quotes, are really not solutions. They're Band-Aids, as you shared. And so I always look deeper. I mean, one of the really neat things about you and that I respect so much is that you're looking at things from that hormonal perspective, because hormones are a root cause. I think there's a number of root causes of why usually people's chronic skin conditions can occur, but that's a big piece to it, especially for women. And so I look at all the different factors and help them understand why, you know, oh, I went on this super restrictive elimination diet and they've tried low salicylate, taken out nightshades, gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free, sugar-free, whatever free, and nothing is working. And they've done cleanses and detoxes and it's gotten worse. And it's because we're not looking at what underneath it all, where are the imbalances? Are there insufficiencies in nutrients, as you said? Are there stress factors that certainly play a role? Are there trauma? Is there trauma in your life? You know, what do we need to rebalance? What do we need to support? You know, I think a lot of times people focus on like detoxifying the liver. I'm like, maybe we need to support the liver a little bit more than focusing on this like detox, which in a sense is very masculine. It's like we're gonna strip and clean. And in reality, your liver oftentimes needs more support and love than it needs, at least from my experience.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that people enter into this detox thing with the best of intentions, but like clinically speaking, the strongest and most effective detoxes are the ones that look at what does your liver need to function optimally and how do we support that? Because it's like somehow it got confused that your liver can't detox unless like you're doing all of these crazy things. But I mean, it's true. We see it a lot where people are like, oh, I have to detox because that's not happening on a daily basis. And I have to explain to patients, so your liver is detoxing every day, your gut, moment. Your skin, it's all working all the time. It's a matter of coming in with that extra layer of support. And I think that's important for women to hear because, you know, we've had conversations before about the different food restrictions and how much women in, you know, this might be true for women listening as well, where, you know, they'll get down to where they're like eating 3 foods a day. And it's like, okay, well, that's not serving you. And also that's like, nobody wants to live like that as well. But it's something where it's like, if you keep doing the same thing and you're not getting results, it's time to look a little bit deeper, which is what I love about what you do and how you work with women. And really, you know, with eczema and psoriasis, I think you take a really comprehensive approach of an examination of all of the different things that could be triggering this. And like, you know, this is a spoiler alert, it's not usually one. There's usually multiple. And, you know, that's the thing I think we do a little bit differently is that there's this genuine curiosity for figuring out that case and taking the labs, taking the story, taking everything that's going on and putting it all together. And for me as a clinician, I'm like, I do the physical exam, I do the labs, that's very small pieces of the puzzle, and then you tell me your story, and that is really like when you just threw the whole, like, you just emptied the box of the puzzle onto the floor. Now we start to put it all together because it's something, it's much more complex than what a lab test can tell you, and it's much more complex than just suppressing it with like a steroid cream or taking hormonal birth control and thinking that, well, this will just fix the problem for now. So for women who are listening to this, they're going to want to follow you. They're going to want to learn more about you. I just know it. Where can they find you? Where can they learn more about you? And how can they join you on this journey?
Well, I have a really great website, and it's called skinterrupt.com. And part of the reason that I came up with this home for the conversation about chronic skin conditions is because I want to interrupt the conversation that we are currently having, because what's going on in conventional dermatology is not working. It's not serving. You lose your quality of life. You lose so much. You lose your family. You lose being able to go out. You can't travel. Some people can't work. And it's blown off. And I want to help people find solutions that mirror their health values and look for those root causes. And then I also have another website called Gluten Free School. So for anybody who's looking for help around gut, as well as learning how to transition to a gluten-free lifestyle, as well as other if you've got to remove eggs or dairy or whatever, here's a practical way to do it. I've done it, and I can show you how to do that. So those are the best ways to connect with me, as well as Instagram, Facebook, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and can you spell Skinterrupt for us?
Yes, it's SKINTERR UPT. It is a little tricky, I admit.
That's exactly what I was like. I think you need to spell that so everybody can find it.
So essentially, all you have to do is think skinterrupt.com, and you're there.
Perfect. And we'll go ahead and link to it so that you'll have that as well. We'll make it easy on them. All right. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me. I really appreciate you sharing your story, your work, and how you are inspiring so many women to change their lives.
Well, thanks for having me, Jolene.